In this episode of B.Hooked Crochet, we're going to make the cozy slipper socks. My name is Brittany, and of course, I'm your host here at BHookedCrochet.com, and I'm very excited about this project. You can get your free pattern at BHookedCrochet.com/cozy socks, and that's going to include the supplies list as well. So check out that pattern, get your supplies, and let's get started. We're going to begin our socks with a technique called the magic ring. The reason why we have to use this technique is because we don't want there to be a hole at all at the very toe of our slipper. So we're working these from the toe up, and we have to work this magic ring in order to make sure that that hole stays closed when we start working in the round. So the way you want to work the magic ring is place your working yarn in between your fingers, just like this. You'll wrap it towards you around those front two and back. So I just have my tail coming at the front. I'm going to secure that with my thumb. I have the working yarn coming at the back here underneath my ring finger. You'll insert your hook under the two loops on your two first fingers. Then you'll grab the back loop and pull it under the front. Now this can sometimes get a little tricky, and you can just help it with your other finger. Now you're going to pick up that working yarn, just use your little pinky back there to raise it up. You'll grab the working yarn and pull it through that loop on your hook. That's going to secure things just a little bit. So what you can do from here, this is a super awkward position. I'm sure you can agree with me. So we can't actually crochet in this position. But what I like to do is just secure my middle finger just behind the work and my thumb right here. Then I can slide everything out and then gather up my working yarn. And this is the ring, this is the magic ring that I'm going to be working in. So we don't want to let that go. What we want to work our stitches into that space. So I'll just secure these two fingers in there, holding it open and guiding this tail so it lays down. Now we're going to be working with double crochet stitches the majority of this project. So we're going to begin by making 3 chains. This is going to be a double crochet stitch. So chain 3 is acting as a double crochet. And we want to have a total of 10 double crochets in our ring. So we have 1 here. We're going to make 9 more double crochets in the ring. So we'll just wrap the yarn, insert into that ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's how you make a double crochet. We have 2, so we want 8 more. So we'll find the tail, and we're just going to pull on that. That's going to draw it up, and you'll give it a nice strong pull. Now you don't want to break your yarn, but we do want that completely closed. And to finish off round 1, we're going to locate that 3rd chain. So remember at the beginning we chained 3. We want to find that 3rd chain. So right here next to my first stitch, you just insert your hook into that chain, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the loop on your hook. Round 2, we're going to start working with a new stitch called the front post double crochet. We're going to be working in that the majority of the pattern, so you'll definitely want to get used to this as you go. We're going to start each round by chaining 2. And this chain 2 is not counting as anything. It's not a double crochet, not another stitch. It's just a way to get us at the proper height. So as you know, crochet stitches have a certain height to them. And if we were to just start off, then at this starting point, our work would just be a little distorted. So we have this chain 2 that's acting as nothing, but it's just a starting chain there. We'll find our first stitch. Now this first stitch is the chain 3. And as you can see, I'm just poking it out from the back side. We're going to work the front post double crochet around this stitch. So typically we would work in the stitch up here at the top. Well, this time we're going to work around the post. So you'll wrap your yarn like normal, find that stitch, go in from one side and out the other, just like that, and then finish your double crochet. Now this round we need to increase, so we're going to be making 2 front post double crochets for every stitch. We're going to double our stitch count here. We'll just find that same post right here and do that once more. Now we'll locate the next post, which is right here, and we'll make 2 front post double crochets around that stitch too. And we're going to repeat that for every one of our stitches. So make 2 front post double crochets for every single stitch. And at the end, you're going to have a total of 20 stitches. And when you've made it to the end of your round, you're going to locate your first stitch. So we're not counting that chain 2 once again. We'll count our first stitch here. Just join with a slip stitch to that first front post double crochet. And that's going to finish off round 2. Before we move on, it might be a good idea for you to go ahead and deal with this end right here. So the end from our magic ring. As you saw, it has a tendency to stretch back out as you work the pattern. So what I would recommend is just take a darning needle and work it under these stitches a few times, then trim it off, and then you won't have to worry about that anymore. The next 12 rounds are going to be exactly the same. So rounds 3 through 14, we're just going to make 1 front post double crochet into every stitch. Now at this point, you may need to make some sizing adjustments. I personally wear about a 7.5 size shoe, and this slipper fits me perfectly, but just know that this is a really stretchy design. So as you work through this, at the end of row 14, try it on, see where it sits on your foot. We're going to start our heel increases right after that point, and so you want it to come just to the end of your heel. So if you need to add a few more rounds, it's no big deal. If you need to add fewer rounds, if you have a smaller foot than me, then go ahead and do that as well. So what I've done here to begin round 3 is I've made my 2 chains. Once again, that doesn't count as a stitch, and I'm going to find my first front post double crochet, and I'm just going to work a front post double crochet around that post. And then the second one, work a stitch there, and then you'll repeat that all the way around. Now you will want to keep an eye on your stitch count throughout this process. We don't want to decrease accidentally. These stitches that are in between have a tendency to just kind of get hidden. So it's really easy to just completely forget them. As you can see, I just usually spread it open with my fingers to find that stitch. When you've made it to the end of your round, we're going to join with a slip stitch to our first front post double crochet. So here's my 2 chains. We're just going to ignore that, find our first front post double crochet, and slip stitch there. And you can see your work will probably want to start curling the wrong way. So what I just do is, as I'm working it, just kind of force it into the proper position. So this is the right side and this is the inside of our slippers. So as I mentioned before, what we're going to do is we have a long section where we're repeating that same round, the 3rd round that I just demonstrated. If you wear approximately a 7 to a 7.5 size shoe, you'll go to about rows 14. So you'll just count as you go along. If you have a smaller shoe size, then you'll make fewer rounds. If you have a larger shoe size, then you'll make more. The objective here is, once you work the end of this repeat, you want it to sit just in front of your heel. So go ahead and work on that. Get through the foot portion of your slipper. Then we'll come back to the video and we'll talk about shaping the heel. All right, now what I've done off camera is I have crocheted my toe and my foot of my slipper. This, when I put it on my foot, it comes just to the end of my heel, and that's the goal here. We want to just create a slipper that's long enough to reach our heel, and at this point we're going to start the heel shaping. And we're going to begin that with this first round. We're going to chain 2, which again doesn't count as a stitch. We're still working in that front post double crochet stitch. And we're going to make our increases right here along this side, because this is the bottom part of our slipper. So we're going to find our first stitch, and we want to make 2 front post double crochets in the first stitch. And so we've increased by 1 by doing so. And we're going to do that for the next 4 stitches. So we're going to have a total of 5 increased stitches here. So now that's the second. 2 front post double crochets in the third. Two front post double crochets in the fourth and in the fifth. Okay, so what we've done is we have increased for half of our heel. We're going to come back around and increase over here a little bit more. What we need to do now, though, is we need to stop increasing, and we're going to work 1 front post double crochet in the next 10 stitches. Now, what we should have is 5 stitches remaining. If you've been doing your stitch counts correctly throughout this part of the project. So this round, you should have 5 stitches remaining, and we're going to increase here again. So we'll make 2 front post double crochets into the last 5 stitches. And once you finish that, you'll find your first front post double crochet. So just be very careful when looking for it, because it tends to get hidden under this stitch right in front of it. We'll join with a slip stitch to that first stitch, and that will finish the round. So let's review this round. What we have done is we have increased by 10 stitches, so we'll have a total of 30, and it's a good idea to go ahead and count just to make sure that you have the right stitch count at this point. The next 3 rounds are going to be very simple, so let's cover those next. The next 3 rounds we're not going to increase or decrease. We're just going to make 1 front post double crochet for every stitch. Now for me, this is rounds 16, 17, and 18, but yours might vary because, like I said, my shoe size might be different than yours. So you could have a different number of rounds at this point, but you should still have the same number of stitches. Once again, we'll have 30 stitches. We're going to begin the first round by chaining 2, and then we'll front post double crochet for every single stitch. And you may have noticed I'm running to the end of my ball of yarn, so I'm going to demonstrate how to join a new color. This may not be the case for you, so I started about midway through my skein. So this project for this size takes about 3 skeins. So I finished my first pair, or my first slipper, and started on this second slipper. So I started with about a half of a skein, and this is as far as I've gotten with that. Okay, you don't want to go too long. You want to leave yourself just a few inches of a tail. I'm actually going to back out this last stitch here, because you want to be able to weave this in and tie it off. So if it's too short, you won't be able to do that. So you'll start out as if you're going to make the full front post double crochet. So I've just yarned over and pulled through, and now I'll yarn over and pull through 2. Now typically we would yarn over again and pull through 2, and that would finish the stitch. But when we're adding on a new ball of yarn, this is one way to do so that will give you a really secure join. So I'm just adding in my new color. You can create a slip knot here if you want to, but you don't have to. We're just going to fold it over, again leaving yourself 3 or 4 inches or so of a tail. And you'll just place that loop on your hook and pull that through the remaining 2. Now that finished your stitch, but we can't just leave it there. I'm going to flip this around and tie the 2 ends together. This is what's making it really secure. Now it's a good idea at this point, or before you get too far ahead, to go ahead and weave those in. It's going to get pretty tricky once it's too long for us to fit our hands in. So now what I need for you to do at this point is finish crocheting this round and 2 more where we do nothing but just front post double crochet in every stitch. Now once you get those 3 rounds done, you can really see the heel start to take shape. So this is the side of the slipper, and so as we can see, it comes out and then goes straight. So it's a good idea for you to try it on right now. This should be just about at the end of your heel. So now that we have shaped the heel coming out, the next round we're going to shape it coming back in the other direction. So to begin the next round, this is round 19 for me, but once again your round numbers could be different depending on the size. So to begin this round, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to find the first 2 stitches. So here and here, and now we're going to work a front post double crochet 2 together. That's just a decrease for the stitch that we're working with here. And since we increased by 10 stitches just a few rows back, now we're going to decrease by 10 stitches on this round. So we're going to split it up 5 on this section and then 5 when we come back around, just like we did before. So to work that front post double crochet 2 together, you'll yarn over and just act like you're working a normal front post double crochet stitch, but stop after you have pulled through those first 2. And just leave those 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and work your hook under the next post. Yarn over and pull through 2. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. We have both of those stitches attached. We'll just yarn over and pull through all 3. And now we've decreased those 2 stitches into 1. So we'll do that a total of 4 more times on this side. Then once you have those 5 decreases there, we'll work 1 front post double crochet for each of the next 10 stitches. And then once you finish those 10, you should have 10 stitches remaining. And we're going to work the front post double crochet 2 together over these last 10 stitches. So we'll be decreasing once again by 5. Okay. So just work your front post double crochet 2 together a total of 5 times. All right, then once you finish that, then you'll find your first stitch, so it'll be that front post double crochet 2 together. You'll find that stitch and you want to slip stitch there to finish off the round. So at the end of that round, once again, it's round 19 for me, and you may have a different round depending on your size. What we've done is we have decreased once again by 10 stitches. So we have 20 stitches now on our project, and we're going to start some more shaping for the next round. So we have our heel shape, but if we were to just continue working up the up towards the leg, so working through the ankle part, then it makes the slipper really difficult to slide on and off. So we need to add a little bit more shaping so that we have some extra room here, so that we can get our foot into the slipper comfortably. So I'm beginning on round 20, and what we're going to do is we're going to increase, once again, we're going to increase just a little bit on the back side, and we're going to increase once again up here at the front. So we'll begin the round by chaining 2, and we're going to make 2 front post double crochets in the first 2 stitches. Now this part might be a little bit tricky because our first stitch is a 2 together. It's a decrease. So you just want to find the entire stitch. Maybe it may be helpful if you just work your finger in the back of it, and you're going to work your hook under both of those, even though it is just 1 stitch. And you'll work your front post double crochet And then you want to do that once more. And then do that for the next stitch too. Now we'll make just one front post double crochet for the next 5 stitches. So once again, we still have a few more of these decreases to work through. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those last 2 are not decreases. Now we're going to make 2 front post double crochet for each of the next 6 stitches. And then once you get those 6 increases there, we're going to make 1 front post double crochet for the next 5. So we're just mirroring exactly what we did on the other side. Now finding those decreases again, just be careful that you're working them as they are one stitch. We should have 2 stitches remaining. We're going to work 2 front post double crochets for each of those. And once again, these last 2 are decreases, so just be careful where you're working your hook. So you can see I'm just inserting my hook underneath both of the posts. Now to finish off the round, you'll find your first front post double crochet right here. You'll slip stitch right there to that stitch. So at the end of that last round, it's round 20 for me, what we've done is we've increased by 10 stitches again. So we have 30 stitches in our slippers and all of the hard work is done. We don't have to do any more shaping. Now we're working on the shell stitch that works up the ankle and part of the calf. Now this particular stitch pattern is just a 2-row repeat, so we'll cover those 2 rows here, and we're going to begin by chaining 3. Now this chain 3 counts as a double crochet in a shell stitch. So this is actually going to be the middle double crochet in our 5-stitch shell. Now what we want to do is make 2 more double crochets in the same stitch. So you can see where that chain is coming from right here. You'll just work 2 more double crochets in that stitch. And then we want to skip 2 stitches. So this is our first stitch. So this is technically where our shell is coming from. So we don't want to count that when we're skipping. So we're going to count the next one. So 1 and 2, which is back here. And then we'll single crochet in the next. Now we'll skip 2 more stitches, and we'll make 5 double crochets in the next. Now we'll skip 2 and we'll single crochet in the next. And that's our repeat for this round. Skip 2, 5 double crochet in the next. Okay, when you get to the other side of your round, if you've been doing everything correctly, you should have a single crochet and then have 2 stitches available to skip. And then we'll finish off that first shell. So we had our chain 3 was 1 stitch and we added 2 to it. So what we need to do is make 2 more double crochets for this first shell to finish it off. So we want to find the place where all of our stitches are coming from, and we'll work 2 more double crochets in that space. And then we'll locate our chain 3. So right here, it's 1 chain, 2, and 3. We'll just join with a slip stitch to that 3rd chain to finish off the round. So that's how we do that first round repeat. Well, the shells are going to take place in between each other. So our next shell is going to be right here and right here. So we have to have a different stitch pattern for the second row. And we're going to cover that next. So once you have that first row foundation, then this stitch pattern gets a lot easier. We can kind of just eyeball at that point and not have to focus so much on counting our stitches. So where I'm at now is I've joined with a slip stitch to that 3rd chain. Now to begin the round, I'm going to chain 1. And this chain 1 counts as a stitch, but sometimes it's hard to find chain 1s later on in the round when we have to join. So I'm going to place a stitch marker just in this chain. You can do the same. These are just locking stitch markers I got from Clover. You could also use a bobby pin or a scrap piece of yarn if you don't have a stitch marker available. So that's just going to help you know where to join when you come back to the end of the round. And now what we need to do is just look for those single crochets. And we're going to make our shell into that single crochet. So technically we're still skipping 2 stitches. So you can count, 1, 2, and then 5 in the next. Or, you could just eyeball it and look for the single crochet and make 5 double crochet there. And then we'll skip 2 stitches, or you can just find the middle double crochet for the next shell, and you'll make a single crochet right there. So technically our stitch pattern is still the same. We're still single crochet, skip 2, 5 double crochet, skip 2, single crochet. That's still our repeat, but we're just working it in a different place. So skip 2, okay. So we'll skip those 2, 5 double crochet in the next. Skip 2 and single crochet in the next. So go ahead and finish that up for this round. Then when you get to the end of that round, you can see where we place a stitch marker on that chain 1 because it is pretty difficult to see. We're going to join with a slip stitch to this chain 1. So if you can work it just right past your stitch marker, just make your slip stitch there, and then you can remove your stitch marker. Now the remainder of our pattern is just the last 2 rows that we repeated. So the next row we would start with 3 chains and then work our shell pattern there, and then follow up with the next round starting with the chain 1 and working our shell pattern after that. What we want to do is have a total of 7 rounds of shells. So we have 2 already, and you can count these pretty easily here on the front. So this would be first round, second round. We want to have 7 rounds total. So what I need for you to do at this point is finish working that up. So repeat the last 2 rounds that we just covered until you have 7 rounds total of shell stitches. And at that point, our slippers are done. All we have to do is fasten off and weave in our ends. Now once you get to the end of that last round, so where we have 7 rounds of shell stitch, we're completely finished with our slipper. Now you do have a couple of options. If you want your slippers to be just a little bit taller, you should have a little bit of yarn left over. So you could add a couple more rounds or a few more rounds if you want them to be a little bit taller. Or if you have an extra skein of yarn, then you can go ahead and make them much taller boots, so mid-calf. And that might be really great for winter when it's really cold, but I particularly like this style here for spring and fall weather when it's just chilly but not quite that cold. So once you get to this point, when you have it the length that you want, we can go ahead and fasten off. So you'll leave yourself a tail that's a few inches long, and then just pull the tail through that loop, pull that tight. And then all you need to do is weave in this end, and I recommend doing so on the inside here. Now I will typically work my end just down to where there's a dense portion of stitches. So like right here on this shell stitch, I'll just work it down to that. And then I'll just work my needle under all of those stitches. And I'm not trying to go in them perfectly. Actually, it works out better if we don't. If we kind of split the fibers, then it'll have a tendency to stay a little better. So I've worked it in under one direction. Now I'll come back the other way. And maybe once more. And then you can trim that off. So of course you'll make your second slipper, and your cozy slipper socks are complete.